Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week we'll cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiphany Lopez, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. And now, let's get started on this week's episode. Welcome back for another episode of For the Record, where we invite disruptive thinkers who are helping to shape our industry in a whole new way. Today's guest definitely fits the mold. I'm excited to share a little time with Dr. Sorr. Dr. Sorr is a nationally known naturopathic physician and the owner of Source of Health in Scottsdale, Arizona. The reason I had to have Dr. Sorr on today is because he's living the future of what I envision for aesthetics. But he's doing it right now, and he's doing it successfully. I believe before COVID that the medical wellness industry would surpass aesthetics in growth and in revenue. And now with COVID, I don't see any way that it can't. I really believe that aesthetics, regenerative medicine, functional, medical, and mental wellness are all going to come together and act as puzzle pieces for what will emerge as an overall integrative approach to vitality and longevity. And Dr. Sorr has been working with this approach for quite some time, for many, many years. And he's managed to become really well known in each of these areas. I think that fact alone is remarkable. And he's also got the funniest jokes on Instagram, and he can give a killer virtual lecture. And I've yet to mention his incredible marketing skill set. But I'm going to let him tell us more about that and all of these other components as well. Welcome, Dr. Sorr. We're excited to have you onto our show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
How's life in Scottsdale?
Life is good. We're out of the triple digits. It's what Arizona's all about. Beautiful weather.
It's like Dallas. It's summer year-round.
It's great.
Well, we're going to go ahead and jump right in here because I got lots of questions for you.
Let's do it.
So you and I recently became acquainted with Aesthetic Next, and I was thinking about who am I going to talk to about regenerative medicine, wellness, longevity, all these different things, and who's doing it really well. And I only had one thought in my mind, which was most definitely you. People aren't really caught up yet to this idea in our industry. It's sort of still kind of unknown. So I think part of that too is that you're a naturopathic physician. So I want to start there as our number one thing to level set and see if we can let everybody in the audience kind of know what you do, what's different about you versus maybe a traditional medical doctor, and set the record straight.
Absolutely. So all doctors go to medical school. So our medical school is just set up by the naturopathic board versus the allopathic or the osteopathic boards. So we have our basic medical training, how the body works, how the body breaks down. But what becomes naturopathic is, well, how do we go about treating it? So we go through something called a therapeutic order, and you're just going from the least invasive to the most invasive. So obviously people don't want surgery as their first go-to, and a lot of people don't want to be on drugs either. So this opens up a huge space for looking at things that are still medical. It's not just what we call kitchen medicine, like, oh, put an onion on your foot. And I mean, we learn that stuff that's like kitchen medicine or grandma's medicine, but we take a higher level approach to it and look at what the current research is. And, some anecdotal stuff that happened, from millennia ago have been rehashed. And now that we have modern medicine and modern science, we can apply this through clinical trials. So it's really exciting. And the whole world of functional medicine, I think that a lot of your listeners are going to know a little bit more about, really stems from naturopathic medicine. Dr. Jeff Bland is the kind of chairman, the head of who created functional medicine, and he studied alongside of a lot of the naturopathic elders, as we call it. So, our grandpas in naturopathic medicine, who I had the pleasure of training under, that are, slowly passing away because they were up there in age. And, it really takes a lot of privilege and a lot of responsibility to make sure that knowledge, that wisdom gets carried down through generations to come.
So you're holding the tribal knowledge and you're sharing it with the masses, which I appreciate and love dearly. So I think that's an interesting concept, which brings me to my next question, which is, this is not new. You just mentioned millennia ago. This is not a new concept. This is not new in medicine, period. But I think it's really gaining popularity right now. And, as I mentioned, COVID, I kind of think as we come out of COVID, we're all thinking about overall wellness and longevity and becoming healthier to fight disease. And it's sort of now at our forefront. But what do you think is driving the popularity right now with this kind of approach within aesthetics, for example?
Yeah, I sit back and I find it funny because Everything that we do here is to improve the status quo of healthcare, is to make a significant impact on health and, the well-being of everyone that we come across of. What we've been doing since day one is all of these guidelines that have been out for COVID. Make sure you see one person at a time, and we spend time to get to know people. I don't do quick visits. My quickest visit is my, hey, how's it going? Welcome to the practice. From there, we start diving deep. And my superpower, if you will, is making the connections, is putting all the pieces together. So the best thing you could do is be healthy. I mean, we already know that. We know that great health and vitality is the key to longevity. It's not just living longer, which is lifespan, it's your health span. How well do you live that? Like, what's the point of living past 100 if you're, skin and bones and in a wheelchair? You want to be vibrant. You want to have all of that robustness. You want to be like that little old lady who's like running around and doing everything, and she doesn't stop. We don't want to be there in a nursing home and unable to take care of ourselves. Who wants that? That's not anti-aging. Anti-aging is actually turning that clock backwards or slowing down that rate of decline. And that's what we know how to do.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between like stopping the advancement to death versus prolonging life. Like they're very different ideas. And we're going to get in this in a little bit, but I want to be that 80-year-old lady who still wants to have sex, and can still do it. Like, I think that's part of what you give to people, which I think is really important. And, as I think about this, you're doing all these different things in your clinic, and we'll talk about that as well. But people don't really think about doing, male testosterone or, PRP for hair loss in the same clinic. They're doing like toxin and filler and laser and Sculptra. It just hasn't really been like this great marriage. And to me, to your point, wellness is like an overall being or an overall state of mind, which to me is inside and outside. It's kind of the whole thing works together. So, I'm a big fan of what you're doing, and it's interesting to me too that you're doing really good at a lot of things. So, our industry is all consuming in aesthetics, as you well know. It like sucks up your soul many days. Part of our podcast is about surviving aesthetics, but you're a very skilled injector. You're on the forefront of aesthetic medicine and about toxin filler injections, etc. But you're also doing all these other things. So what made you think to yourself one day, like, I think I'll be this incredible doctor focusing on the inside, but I'm going to go do some Botox and filler? Like, what prompted that decision for you?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm really doing the best that I can. And I think the thing that allows me to do all of this is my superpower, which we call ADHD. I think that it's not a disorder. I think it's a gift to be able to see many things happening all at the same time. And that allows the brain to get creative. And it takes that level of creativity to be able to put together a plan that's not cookie cutter. It's really customized for that person. So I think you and I remember like watching TLC growing up with like Trading Spaces and HGTV with the before and afters. Everybody loves before and afters. So if I take a look at somebody physically, I'm visually seeing their face. Within a second, I know their age, essentially, their gender, their health, and their emotional status. Do I trust this person? So if I'm picking up on their face that it's like all blotchy or their skin texture is a little off, you're starting to get some clues about somebody's internal health. So how can I ignore that? How do I not say something that's on my mind? How do we not put that together? Conversely, somebody's coming in and sitting in the chair saying, hey, I've got these wrinkles, I want them to go away. I'm like, well, that's not the only thing that you need to go away. There's some other things going on. So let's take a dive down on the inside and really figure out what's causing all this. Why are you aging so rapidly? What did you do? Or is it just your genetics? And everybody loves to blame genetics, right? Oh, it's my genetics. It's not your genetics. That's 5 to 10% of why you are the way that you are. And there's been so many great twin studies that have done this as well. It's the environment. It's your choices, your thoughts, your words, your actions and behaviors that get you to where you're at. Even the top CEOs of the world, of these billionaires, they all have the same genetics essentially that we all do. It's just we all vary by just a tiny little bit. We're 30% daffodil. We have the same genes as plants, 30%. Every bacteria has the same energy making cycle that we do for the most part. It's not that different from everything else. We just have to learn how to biohack that and make sure that we're at the clinical point giving people really what they need versus what they want. And sometimes there's a lot to that. There's a lot to unpack with that. Is it their mind? Is it they're looking at social media and saying, oh, I want my selfie to look better? Or is it they look in the mirror and like, I look like garbage? I'll say that nicely. Why is that? If you look like garbage at 40, that's different than I look like garbage at 60 or 80. And it's not garbage. You're just noticing the signs of aging. But are you aging rapidly? Is there something going on with your health? Do you have a chronic illness? Do you have chronic infection, chronic inflammation? That's not good. That can't be conducive to good health. So that's where we have to go. We have to treat that root cause.
It's funny you said biohacking. I was thinking that exact word when you said it. It's like we were connected on a different level. And probably because I have narcolepsy. So I take Adderall every day. Narcolepsy makes you feel like you have ADHD at some points in the day. And so I'm also doing 1,000 things at once. So much like you, I feel like I look at a problem and think about all the ways I could possibly fix it. It's a matter of taking all that chaos, making it functional and making it operational. So I know you're doing that really, really well, as your clinic is obviously a testament to your ability to balance lots of things, which I have to believe is part of your skill set too, with biohacking, thinking about your own mental wellness. I know you're very healthy. You work out all the time. I see it on your Instagram. You eat healthy. And I think that's the difference too, as I think about traditional medicine. Like, you're the picture of what you're selling. You look young, you're vibrant, you're active, you're doing all the things that you talk about, and as a result, you look like the model citizen. You look very healthy and youthful, which I think is a big difference in your approach versus maybe the medicinal. Let's take a prescription. Let's do the surgery thing that you might see in more popular medicine. So,
Absolutely. I mean, I think that if you don't lead by example, what kind of leader are you?
well, maybe a rich one depending on what industry you're in, but that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah, so money is important. I know that money is an important factor, but I have three things that come before money. It has to be safe, it has to be effective, and you have to have fun while you're doing it. Otherwise, it's not worth it. I see patients that make so much money and they're miserable and they hate their life and they're unhealthy and I'm like, what are you doing? It's not just all about the dollar.
God,
It's
it's so
about
true.
enjoying your wellness, because how can I be helping somebody with their health if I'm not talking about that other piece of the pie that's just like consuming them? Like, if is your job your cancer? Is that eating you alive? Like, that's not okay. Like, my heart breaks. Like, I want to reach out and just hug that person so hard and say, please don't do this. It's not worth it for you. You're
And
not
I
cut
think
out for it.
and I think there's this connection between your mental wellness and how that manifests into your body. Because I think about myself, like, I'm a go hard. I work all the time. I derive joy from working. So I'll work. Like last night, I went to bed at 4:30 in the morning, and I got up at 7:30 in the morning to come back to work. Like, that's ridiculous, but that's what feeds my soul. It feeds my soul, but then on the third day I crash. Again, narcolepsy, it helps you out. For those of you who don't know, it helps you have superpowers. But then you crash like a dead person on day 3. So I know this cycle of insanity is not good for me. And eventually my health, I get sick or I get worn down, or these things happen. So, I think your point about CEOs, they work like maniacs and your body just like wastes away. Trust me, I know. I can attest to this.
Yeah,
It
it's hard to
happens.
shut off that CEO brain, that business brain. So
Well,
in the
yeah.
book E-Myth, they talk about the creator, so that imaginative spirit, your entrepreneur side. You have the manager who's trying to balance the creative with, here's the technician. You need to place that needle here and just do that. So how do you balance all those? And it's all balance. So, yoga is a huge part of my life, has been for a very long time. So I can't ignore that. I have to bring that together. It's all about coming together. You and I are not that different. No one is that different from one another. It's our experiences. I think we're all born into this world, and then we all die. It's just what you do in that meantime that matters much. But, we are so busy and on the go and rushing, rushing, rushing. You're not stopping and smelling the roses. We need to slow down, actually. It's healthy to take a vacation.
Well, that leads us to our next topic beautifully, about business, because that's the thing that I know a lot about. I'm not so good at wellness, but I'm really good at business. So we're gonna go into my territory. Uh, so from a business perspective, as you think about all these things you're doing, as we just talked about, which we're going to kind of parse them out in a second, but as you think about that, how do they feed each other? So are you thinking about these as built-in referral systems for one another? Do you focus on a patient comes in the front door and you tell them about everything that you do in your discovery visits? How do you kind of take this massive list of services that you have, which I think is probably a lot for the average person, especially for me, and make that operational for you in a consultation?
Right. So it's very important not to overwhelm a brand new person in front of you. You can't overload them and say, we can do all of these things. Like, that's fine. What is the main thing for them? So this is all about good history taking and building rapport with your patient. That's the most important thing for them. If their thing is, I want to lose weight, we need to gear everything around losing weight, not as their goal, but the side effect of becoming healthy. If they want to get rid of their wrinkles, like, okay, that's fine. Let's talk about where they came from in the first place. So it's really about listening. And if I only did one thing and focused down on one thing, everybody who comes in must need it. But I don't have that. I have so many tools in my toolbox. It's like painting with only red. Like you can't really get very far without that. You need contrast and you need diversity in your practice. Whatever it is that you do, if you're only aesthetics, that's fine, but you're not only going to do toxins. I mean, you can only get so creative. HA filler, oh my goodness, like you can spend more than a facelift with just HA filler in one setting. Like that's not ethical to do that. So you need to have creative options that are really focused on the person, not yourself or your business. You can't make it about yourself. So I like being self-centered, but I don't like being selfish. So that's one of my little TED Talks that I talk about in yoga. It's like you need to know where you sit in your center. And that way, anytime something, the wind, the rain, a person, pushes you off center, you know how to right yourself. So if it doesn't fit to your ethics, if it doesn't align with you, just let it go, refer it out, or just say no. That takes strength. That takes a skill and that takes experience and years. When you start off in your practice, you have all these treatments. You're like, I learned about all this stuff in medical school. Wow. You end up only doing a few things. So even though it's available for you, it doesn't mean that it's right for that person that's sitting in your chair.
In the South, we call that bless and release. Let them go. Get rid of them. Get them out of your hair. No, I'm kidding. Send them to somebody else. But I do think I think it's an important note that the whole idea about being self-centered, I agree with that totally. You have to know who you are, what you believe in, your convictions, or you'll sort of fall for anything. It's like an old country song. So I think that there's a big part of that it's okay to look out for number one if it's in a way that keeps things on track, keeps them ethical, keeps them to your code of conduct or your code of ethics. Like, I'm all in for this TED Talk. So we're going to do that next time we're together. We'll do this TED Talk. But I want to talk about on your website, you have this thing called like a discovery session, which I fell in love with. So at AR, at Aesthetic Record, we did the exact same thing. We structure things like hardcore structure here because we have so many features and so many things that people get lost and they fall through the cracks and they don't keep going with our system. So I know that you probably have a sort of a similar, possible issue, if you will, with all the things that you have going on. How does this particular setup work for you in your clinic versus, say, a med spa that's just doing like consulting and injecting in the same day kind of setup? Because I think that's going to be the big shift in mindset for a lot of people and coming on board with this like regenerative functional idea.
Yeah, our discovery session is really simple. First of all, it gets the person to meet me face to face. And instead of just running in with a needle, like, whoa, 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 maybe they're like, hey, I want filler when what they wanted was toxin. Or they want hormones, but they're absolutely not a candidate for hormones. I turn away guys that they're like, hey, I want testosterone. I'm like, I'm not putting testosterone into that hot mess of you, sir. Sorry. That's gonna go really wrong really fast. I have to read them, you know? You have to use your intuition. Seeing somebody face to face, being in person with them, there's an energy. And if you get that, oh, I don't know if that just like you said, bless and release. So one of the things that I do in my discovery session with everybody, and this is going to come off a little sassy, and that's okay, is I do the little matrix, the blue pill and red pill, and I say victim and warrior, baby. I cannot help victims, and I know that. I know that about myself. I'm not in that cause. I help warriors. You're here because you want to be here. You're here because you're proactive. When you come back to me, you ask me one question: how do I do better? That's it. If you're happy with it, then I'm happy with it. Because it's not about what I want. It's about meeting that person where they are and leading them where they need to be. That's the ultimate goal of the doctor, the teacher.
I gotta adopt this red pill, blue pill mindset. This is like a whole new world for me. I'm gonna start using this in AR because I think that is, you just nailed the entire thing. Are you a victim or are you a warrior? That's the same, like even in software or in your practice or in your finances or in your relationship. Like, do you want to be the victim or do you want to, put your big girl panties on and go face the world? And I need a lot of big girl panties, I got a lot of things happening around here. So I like this idea of the red pill, blue pill. We're going to steal that from this podcast. It's going to be our overarching quote for the whole podcast.
Right? So this is the theme of duality, right? And you need to have that duality for reference points. Einstein said there's two choices, fear or love. And that's it. So it depends what path you're going down. If you're doing things out of fear, like, oh my God, I need to make my sales this month. Like that's fear mode. That is so fear mode. That needs to be erased. You can't be all about that. Love is looking at your goals as how many people have you helped today or this month or whatever your tracking record says. How are you helping the world? Are you doing something for somebody else? It's about helping others. It always has and will be. People that have a lot of money, they either are ripping somebody off one time or they're building so much rapport. They're developing their community. You want to be the topic of conversation in a room when you're not there. You want people talking about you. Hopefully it's not bad press, even though that's still good, but your haters will be doing that. That's okay. But you want those people saying, oh my gosh, have you been to see Dr. Fill in the blank? Have you talked to Tiphany about AR? Like, oh my goodness, you have to. Like that's the legacy that you're leaving behind. Those are the rumors and the ideas that are worth spreading. So business is really simple. It's about helping others. If you go in for a one-time sale, you have to constantly be looking for new people. So when people ask, how am I successful? Well, first of all, I live it. I live in that success and that love mindset. But two, it's about the people that I've already helped. I don't have to do very much. I feel like I'm always failing. I think that's a healthy dose of criticism that I always want to do better. I'm never good enough. I'm the doctor. I'm that person, the hero. I need to fix things. I need therapy. We all need therapy. But there's a healthy balance, I think. Don't prescribe that away. I care. Right? And I think that's the thing. It's like we care. Don't shut that off.
So I agree with everything that you just said, especially about needing therapy. I know that I personally need therapy. We all need therapy. And it's interesting on the victim warrior mindset. I think about my childhood a lot and like outliving the things that happened to you as a kid and how people still keep that with them, and it impacts their overall health. It impacts their gut health, it impacts their mental health. I'm a very anxious person. I have terrible anxiety that I live with every day. But I'm functional with it because I've learned how to deal with it. But it creeps up on you every now and then. So I think that what you're doing and what you're saying in your message is like, we gotta get our stuff together, Dr. Sorr. We've got to do better. You're giving me reasons to change in this podcast. I like it.
Yes, I love that. Love that. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to tell you what one thing I do a little bit well is practice consulting. And so that's a place that I spend a lot of time. And I think that's kind of therapy for the practice owner who oftentimes feels scared to death and needs help and wants someone to rescue them. And as I talk to them, I talk a lot about, go deep in what you're good at. You build a practice, do what you know how to do first and get comfortable. Kind of the same point of therapy. Get comfortable, know yourself, see how you react in stressful situations, how you work with your money, your profitability. And once you do that, then you can grow. I always say it's like having kids. 1 is 1, 2 is 1,000. So you've obviously gone deep in lots of different pillars and you've mastered lots of different things. So how are you able to master all these different areas of expertise realistically? So what kind of staff do you have on site? What's your workflow? What's your average appointment time? Kind of give us your overall setup of how this is all working in real life.
Yeah, definitely. I am not a large clinic. We're very boutique. It's me, the doctor. Tori's my front desk. Like, oh my goodness, like cannot survive without a front desk. And then I have my esthetician, laser tech, and I have a physical therapist on staff. And we're growing. We are, but it's about not overdoing it. I never see more than one patient at a time, and I really try to see less than 10 patients a day. That's very different than a turn and burn, money only, quick type of practice. So that's going to keep me small, but it's going to keep me sane, Tiphany. I cannot see 10 patients at a time. I said that ADHD was my superpower. I don't want it to be my kryptonite because I can get really excited and run around, and people read that. So I need to keep myself calm, and I have to have a good time doing it. And I don't want to treat somebody short. I don't want to be short with them and get them in, get them out. So that part's been really important for me. I started off purely, naturopathic medicine. That's what you learn when you're in school and you get out, and then you're officially able to treat people with naturopathic medicine. Like that's what I'm licensed in. I used regenerative medicine in my clinical rotations with my attending physician, and that's what I really ran with. So my practice was very pain management focused, and it still has a large within within it. It's so much harder to talk to somebody about their pain, physical pain, because they don't really want to change their behavior as much. If I told you to, try to sleep on your back instead of your side so you don't get wrinkles, you'll do that. But sleeping because you're in back pain is different. So the whole realm of behavior change, and you see this with practice consulting, it's a behavior change. You know what's wrong with that practice. You can see it. But is the person ready, willing, and able to make that transition and change the behavior? Because that's the only way you're going to see results. Otherwise, it's just talk therapy. It has to actually like kick in into an action plan, right? So having that diversification in our practice, it provides balance and security. So maybe it's not laser season. Okay, so the lasers cool down a little bit, but other things come about. So I like having seasons. I like having different things that peak of interest, like this is what we're doing right now, and this is what we'll be doing later on this year. It's about what's the annual plan? What's the lifespan of that patient, right? As we get into the business talk, what's your average life cycle, or what's the patient's value when they come to your door, right?
I think you mentioned some things there that are key for me is resilience. Things get hard, people give up. I think that's, think about how to bring this into your clinic, even if you're listening to this podcast. When things are hard, people give up. There's a great book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's the best book I've ever read in my whole entire life. And it talks about when things are hard, they're always worth it. Like that's the whole point of them being hard, because as we always say, very cliche, if it wasn't hard, we'd all be doing it. But I think there's a part of it, whether it's in your health or in your business, where when the going gets tough, people give up. And resilience to me is the number one trait of leadership and of success, bar none. That's the thing that makes the world go around, is people who are resilient in the face of chaos. And COVID's taught us that too. People who are resilient have survived, and they've bounced back, and they've done things to become successful, and they've really done the whole carpe diem thing with tragedy. So anywho, to that point, as I think about this being challenging, is if I want to go from my current med spa right now to becoming, more like you, if you will, what's realistic for me to get up and running? Do I start with hormone therapy? Do I start with IVs? How do I even start making this transition?
Well, it all starts in one, what's your scope of practice? And two, what's your education? You cannot just pick up and go if you have not been trained in it. I mean, I think that's really, really important. One, your malpractice wants you to make sure you have training. Your board wants to make sure you have training. And then it's just about trying things out. Go slow, dip your toes in. But if you're ready to go all in, or you're like, you know what, I'm not satisfied with just doing toxins and fillers. I'm seeing that people need more from me. Even when you get your hair done. I love your new hair, by the way. She's got like this icy blondish. She's feeling it. It's great. If you haven't seen Tiphany in a while, so I just wanted to mention that. But it's like, well, are you ready to spice things up a little bit? Like, what's happening in your practice, and why are you feeling that way? Are you seeing other people that are just making so much money doing something else, or do you live in a small town and there's no one else out there that offers it? That I think is a really important thing. If you're in a big town and you want to maybe pick up another skill, why don't you hold that thought and refer it out to people that don't do what you do, and now you've got a referral partner? That is so much healthier for yourself and your community than trying to do it all yourself. I love giving out. I really, really do. I think that's important.
Let's just take a pause on that. That's such a great point, because I think As I thought about this podcast, I was thinking about how do we bring in, like, people are doing IVs. Every nurse, PA, doctor's training how to do an IV. And that's become like this like cutesy fun thing, hangover IVs, concierge IVs, all these things. And that's pretty easy, right? That's an easier thing. But as you mentioned, thinking about hormones, you had a thing this morning about peptides on your Instagram. Like, all these other pieces are so much more complex that I'd rather become friends with you. I'll send you mine, you send me yours, and we all benefit. We all grow our practice organically without having to spend additional marketing dollars. Like, to me, that's a much better business plan than me learning something I'm never going to be as good at as you, and I miss out on the chance to become part of your network. So I think that's a great point.
Thank you. It's the doctor's job is to diagnose and prescribe. Um, that's kind of that one defining feature because there's mechanisms of action, there's risk associated with prescribing people things, and sometimes that's not right. There's people that are not candidates, but you can't just same day, consult and prescribe. You have to make sure that that's the right thing for the person. Again, safe, effective, then fun, and then profitable.
So as we think about men, which is like the carpe diem, as I use that word again for me with aesthetics, our industry can only grow so fast and so much. And as we think about right now in the current scope of our industry, either to your point, we have to add on services, which may not always be a great idea for us if we're not really skilled or adept at that thing. But the other part of it is men. And as we think about Aesthetic Next, which we just had, Dr. Shilpi Ketterpal did this lecture on PRP for hair. And it was probably the most watched lecture we had besides Julie Horn. People gravitated to this PRP lecture like crazy. And I think it's because people are desperate to get men in their practices. We know it's like a 10 to 15% of most practices are men. Yours is much higher, I believe, from what from kind of what you do in your clinic. How do we get men in our clinics if we're not you? How do we leverage these things like PRP or other things that may not be hormones if we can't do it to get men in the door?
Well, that is such a great question. I think men are extremely underserved in the medical community, and men are more interested in doing aesthetic things than they even think, but they need permission to do so. If their bros aren't doing it or talking about it, they're going to be chicken to do it. Men are also afraid of needles. I mean, it's a thing. And I get it, I understand it, but it's about control. Are you willing to give up that control? And is it going to go against your framework of what a man is? I mean, this is its entirety of talk. I mean, we can spend hours talking about the male psyche.
Oh, I've spent 37 years on it, and I'm still not any closer than I was when I started. So you're right, a whole hour.
And are very simple. We're very simple creatures. We really are. We have one tone and that's it. We don't have to worry too much. But PRP for hair loss, I've been doing this for over 5 years and it works, but then it doesn't work. It's not for everything and anything. It has to be part of a comprehensive plan. PRP is just like fertilizer for the lawn. But if there's no grass seed in there, I'm sorry, that's it. And it's, is it cost prohibitive to the person? And are we combining this with other things? There's medications, there's topicals, there's at-home devices that I think are very, very important in the hair restoration world. But this is regenerative medicine. So what I find that's really interesting about regen in the aesthetic world is they don't realize the orthopedic background that it comes from. So it's understanding how the cellular mechanisms and the biochemistry of healing are the same throughout the entire body. So if we're dealing with sexual wellness, aesthetic wellness, or orthopedic wellness, it's really all encompassing it's together. And I love being able to have that conversation. I've been trained in all of these components of regen because that's my jam. I think my background, my foundation is in the functional naturopathic. So everything regen on top of that is great. And I love regenerative aesthetics. Men are more likely to do regenerative aesthetics because they have, that injection fatigue. Men don't like needles. They want to do it and then be done with it. They don't want to keep coming back or have the willingness, like a female would be, to come back and get treatment like they're getting their hair and nails done.
Yeah, they're not like us. They can't stand the comeback rate of having to get hair and nails and lashes and pedicures, and looking good's a lot of work, as we all know here. But I think you make a great point about men. They they need this holistic help or this holistic plan. Think about testosterone and the role that plays in hair loss. And, if you treat one thing and not the root cause, like that's why I think coming to someone like you who can say, what's causing these things to manifest on the outside, let's fix the inside. So I just think that there's, such a connection there. And I wanted to talk about specifically with that connection, sexual wellness, which could really, again, be a whole nother hour. But I probably can't keep it together if we do it because your Instagram posts are so good that I get so tickled. But you had one a few days ago that said, if you don't get morning wood, there's a problem. And I'm quoting here directly, people. And you had a lot of engagement from other injectors thanking you for talking about this and thanking you for bringing this to the forefront and not being really ashamed to kind of put it out there. We talk about vaginal health all the time, vaginal rejuvenation. But I looked at your website and you said that 25% of men under 40 suffer from erectile dysfunction at some point, yet we're not talking about it. But I'm guessing that their partners are telling someone about it, like this is happening in our bedroom, how do we fix it? So tell me how you're helping us with ED so we can tell our injector friends out there listening, if, refer them to you or get a consult with you, a virtual consult. How do we fix this problem or at least try to curb the problem?
Yeah, definitely. I was at a restaurant and I actually got stopped. Like, Dr. Sorr, I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh my God, if you're not getting a morning wood in the morning, there's a problem. Like, I'm now famous for that quote. Oh my goodness, it was so sweet. I was like, oh my God, thank you. You know me as the penis guy. That's great. The the male organ is very simple. Again, there's some musculature towards it, but it's blood flow. And I think that cardiovascular disease affects all of us. And if you think about the diameter of the artery that sends blood flow to the penis, it's thinner than a cocktail straw. That can get clogged quite quickly, more so than a coronary artery. They're a little bit larger in diameter, especially that widowmaker, the left anterior descending. So that's going to get clogged a lot quicker than the coronary artery. You're going to get that atherosclerotic event quicker in the penis. So you have to make sure that we're addressing root cause again. It's cardiovascular system. How about the nerves? What if you're not getting that nervous system flow? There's a natural ebb and wave with the penis throughout the night. So, the old urology test was to actually take stamps when they used to have like glue on them and like wrap it around the penis. And if you broke the stamps where that was the test, that means you actually can get hard, but some guys don't. But before 40, it's so embarrassing to talk about. You don't even want to have the conversation in your own head. Oh no, just throw it away. Throw it in the closets. Don't talk about it. If you talk about it, it's going to make it real. Right? So talking to men, it's a sensitive topic. But if you make it simple, you're like, oh yeah, well, let's take a look at your blood work. One of the things that really stands out is my panel that I put together. Almost everybody starts off with my general panel, and it's a catch-all. It finds different markers, and I interconnect them together on the blood work. Let's work on that foundation first. Fix what you're deficient in, raise that up, bring down what's too high, and start there. And because you have time, like none of this is an emergency situation. So we have to be mindful of that. And throw that back to the patient. It's in their hands. It's not what I would do. It's what's right for them. And men are great because they're very logical about it. This is an emotional kind of issue, but there's a logical approach to it.
Well, let's go to the other gender here because women are not logical. We're crazy. I speak for all of us when I say that. But as you talked about, men talking about it makes it real as far as, sexual dysfunction. And I think for women who are nearing an older age, it also means it's real when we talk about it. So I am about to hit 40 pretty soon, a couple of years. And, luckily I'm feeling a lot more confident. I feel like I'm more attractive than I was at 30. I've kind of grown into my own skin. I know who I am. All these things I mentioned before, my self-center is really strong. But I've also been like mainlining toxin and filler and sculpture for 8 years. So my real face, I don't even know what it looks like anymore. I have no idea. So on the outside, I look really healthy and vibrant and, alive. But on the inside, I have no idea what's happening. Is it my sexual health, my gut health, my mental health? I mentioned I work in an extremely stressful job. I don't sleep. I don't eat a whole lot. I live on Sprite. There's a plug for Sprite. It should sponsor this episode. And I think that our well-kept faces really hide what's going on. So tell me, and many of our audience are going to be my same age range, what's happening to us, women who are hitting 40, what's going on with us, what should we be concerned about, and what should we be talking about out loud?
So you're 40, which means you're not 50. So you're not even close to perimenopause. So your ovaries are still working, you're still pumping out hormones, but you're starting to lose the fight on stress. You're wearing yourself out. And it's really the midway point between 25 and 50. You're right there. And I'm right there with you. But the natural rate of decline is 1% per year. If you couple that with all of the environmental exposures, all of the digital information, the social media, and there's so much in there, we're falling down quicker than our from generations before, our counterparts above there. We are taking better care of ourselves, I think, visibly. Like the Golden Girls back in the 80s, they were not that old, but they just look so old comparatively to how we style ourselves these days. So the generations have changed. But it really is going to start, like you had even mentioned about your gut health. And it's an entire talk that we don't have time for today, but what you're putting into your body is not all that you're putting into your body. There's more, and it's affecting it. So we need to dive a little bit deeper. So I'd love to come back and discuss that at some point in time too. The gut health in your skin, microbiome, it's all connected.
Yes, and I need all of your help. So I know we've gone through lots of things today. We're going to sort of end up here with thinking about marketing because I think about like remodeling my own self as a 40-year-old female and as a man with sexual health and all these different things. You're a fixer. I feel like you're like a fixer and a remodeler, and you are the trading spaces doctor. That's what I'm going to start calling you. And one of the things you recently did is you took over your website, made a lot of changes, and it is absolutely freaking beautiful, by the way. Your website is killer. And I love this idea that you have. First of all, the color palette's beautiful. The graphics are great. They match your Instagram, which makes me so happy. But you have this organization: live better, heal better, look better, move better. And I'm not very creative. I do the best I can on Canva. But how did you think through the design of this, using your ADHD all over the place brain to make this so beautifully organized and methodical and clean?
I made it about the person who's just searching on the Google machine, and what are they going to see at first glance? It's not about me. I keep trying to make this. It's not the Dr. Sorr show. It's about the person, and that's really the motto. Is it's always about the person. Treat the person. Treat the person. So when they get up and they look at the billboard, what are they going to pick on? Pick the category that is most important to you, and from there, you can start diving in. And of course, there's places where you can start jumping around, and that gets a little bit creative. But that's about the one-on-one. That's about that person. Let's talk about it. So people have interests. They're like, "Hey, I want stem cells." I'm like, "That's great. Nice to meet you. I'm gonna need to see some blood work first. Show me some ID, right? I prove to me that you're a candidate for stem cell therapy." I find that most people don't need it at all, and it's a waste of money. I really do. It's exciting. But I also think that testosterone is a waste of money if you're not going to eat right or exercise. What's the point? Save your money. It doesn't exist in a pill or a poke, I promise. Now, toxins and filler, worth their weight in gold. Absolutely, right? Everyone's like, amen.
Couldn't agree more. And it's interesting as I'm hearing you talk. It's like you have the same philosophy across your whole life, because as you mentioned your website, we subscribe here to design thinking. How will the end user use my tool? And I'm going to build it as such. And I'm hearing you say that I'm treating the patient by the root cause, not what they come in presenting with. I'm using my website to see how they should kind of shop my store, not what I want them to see when they come here. Like your entire model, your entire motto, if you will, is about this design thinking approach. Like the end user is your forefront and you're working backward, which I think is a big contrast to the average advertisement Facebook ad website that's like, we've got filler and toxin and laser, buy one get one free on a discount, all these things that are chaos coming at us, where it's like, I just want to know how to fix my aging face. Like, can we just start there? So I love the idea that you've kind of reshaped or reconfigured this entire shopping experience for a patient, because I don't care what people say, medicine is retail. It's medicine for sure, but they're still choosing you over someone else. It's still a retail decision, a buying decision. and you've got to treat it as such.
No, you're absolutely right. And thank you. It's taken so much time and restraint to not throw onto the website everything that I possibly could say or do or wish or this is not a book. This is not my biography. It's a landing page that the person is going to come to. The purpose of the website is to get somebody to book a consultation, to call you, to engage. Maybe they want to sign up for the newsletter. Maybe they want that little trickle campaign, which I mean, I don't like getting trickles. I find that it's just too much, especially knowing what trickles are for. It's to nurture the patient, or the client before they convert. So find those things in your practice. That's my best recommendation for people, is to find the things that can be simple and for the person, not for yourself. Goes back to that. You can bring it all together once you have them in the door.
Well, that brings us to our last big pillar here, which is membership programs, because I think that you bring it all together. I was looking at them last night, doing some research for this, and you've got them in this beautiful grid. So if you guys have not seen his website, it's mysourceofhealth.com. We'll put that in the comments here. Go to this website and look at it. The membership program is so beautifully done. You've got these different categories, very neat and clean. How does recurring revenue like that factor into your practice revenue stream? Has it been a game changer for you? Would you recommend that we all get membership programs in our practices?
I think the membership model works for, certain practices. I think everybody should have some sort of loyalty program. And that's really what it is. It's my loyalty program. If you know that you're going to be doing this on a regular basis and I'm your person, you commit to me, I have no problem hooking you up. I like to hook people up. I don't like being asked for a hookup. I find that's incredibly insulting. Well, what deal do you have on it? Let me deal for you. Let me be the person to hook you up. But that's about trust and commitment on both sides. So I don't reach in and offer that right away. I'm like, hey, do you want to join our tribe? Like, I will hook you up. I am a good person. I will take really good care of you. But I have that East Coast philosophy. Like, you do business with me, I do business with you. I think that's more real. And it's not a superficial thing. It's saying, I appreciate you. And the more that you appreciate our business, we appreciate you back. And I think that's what it's about. And we try to simplify the membership, even though there's like 3 tiers with different bonus programs. But at least you have something that you can kind of get on a monthly basis that you already are enjoying. We do cupping that people come back to every month. People come in for IVs and they come in for different facials and things. So it's like, well, why not kind of put that together? And if you're doing toxin on a regular basis, you can save it. We do this cash it or stash it program. So it's basically creating your own HSA on just a monthly amount.
Oh, yeah, I want to mention something that you just said that kind of just hit me across the face, which was about, like joining my tribe. There's a lot of psychological research. That's obviously my background is in a lot of like learning and development, human asset kind of things. And we talk about that free has no value, but belonging does. And what you just said is so important, that when you give things away for free, no one cares about them. They lose their value, but belonging to something, no matter the cost, it's sticky, right? It feels like it's a sticky thing that keeps you there. That's why we do, recurring revenue models for software. Once we have you in, it's hard to leave us. So I think there's this idea that, to your point, getting them to belong to you is so much more valuable for you as a practice long term than a short term hookup and a freebie. People just don't carry that with them as a valuable thing. If it was so valuable, why'd you give it to me for free? If you were so good, how come your services are free? Like, you wouldn't see, Jennifer Lopez performing for free at the Super Bowl. It just doesn't happen, right? Like, it's just not the way it works. So anywho, I think it's such a valid point, and people overcomplicate membership programs. They call us and say, I want to give this thing, and then I want to add on 2 of these and divide by 4 and add 6 and do a back handspring and 4 cartwheels, and there's a program. It's like the most complicated things you've ever heard. I'm thinking, as a patient, I wouldn't even know where to start with that thing. Yours is like cut and dry. I love it. It's super simple to understand.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, this takes a lot of hard thinking and really hashing it out on paper, and like, how does that make sense? And then what are the loopholes, and how do you make sure that the business is still healthy and you're not just giving money away? How are you still adding value? So we give out little thank you cards for people. We give them gift cards to give to their other friends and family and say, hey, come on in. Like, they're getting this sweet deal. Like, oh, I'm gonna look like a badass. Here's $50 off for a Dysport. Give that to your best friend. don't hold it just for yourself. Give it away, Givers do gain, build that tribe. So
Couldn't agree more on the fact that things that are super simple are often extremely complicated, to your point. Like, you've done a tremendous amount of work to make it look and feel simple, but I'm sure that took hours and hours of thoughts and processes and, like algorithms in your mind to get it done. So I think people forget that when you make it look simple, it's always much harder on the back end. So kudos to you for sticking with it. And as we wrap up here today, I want to let everybody know, for one thing, they must go to your Instagram right now and follow you. It's at Dr. Steven Sorr. We'll put that in the comments as well. You've got the best jokes on Instagram and the best memes. Your Halloween montage of memes was absolutely like gut busting for me. I'd love it. Where do you get these from? Where do you get all these funny memes and ideas from?
Curate them. I spend a lot of time trying to find the right one for the person and finding the picture and just making it have that vibe. Yeah.
Well, they're hysterical, so keep giving them to us. We love them. And what's next for you? Where can we hear from you, learn more from you, hear you on a podium? What's your next big thing?
So I'm working on a training module actually for practitioners to have some way of staying on top of me and learning and asking like those kind of specific questions. So I'm working on that over the holiday breaks and all that. So stay tuned for more.
Woohoo! I like a teaser. You'll have to let us know the minute you get it ready to launch. We'll put it here and we'll do some promos for you, because I can tell you guys it's going to be worth it, whatever it is, because all your stuff is so flipping good. But we are at the end of our road today, which makes me sad because we could talk to each other for, I think, probably 5 more hours. I've got so many more questions for you. But for the record, you have been an awesome guest, and I've learned a lot today about what to expect as our industry matures. We head toward this longevity and vitality route. And, I believe even more today that your model, what you're putting together, is the future for our patients, for our practices and aesthetics. And I mean, frankly, you're just doing a beautiful job with it. So I think as any of you listening are thinking about how do I get this done in my practice, even thinking about streamlining your operations, your creative, how you treat your patients, 10 people a day, mind blowing. How do you increase your average order value? Go look at Dr. Sorr's website. Take a gander at the things he's putting together. You are a pioneer, and you've given us a ton of great insight today, so we can hopefully survive. And for many of us, we hope to also thrive for another day in the aesthetic industry. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
But we will see you guys and hear you guys all next time on For the Record, when we go one-on-one with another thought leader and industry disruptor. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.